Well, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever the case may be for you. For me, it's good morning, about 8:30 in the morning. And so if you've had your day, I hope you had a good day. If you're like me and your day is ahead of you, I hope this is a great start to your day. What we're going to talk about today is, as it says, the importance of study schedules and study plans and whatever exam it is that you're taking. And I want to start by kind of drawing a parallel between exam preparation and sports, and then we're going to give an example that's not about exam preparation, but bear with me for a few minutes. We will get back to what it is that we're here talking about, exam preparation. But I want to start with one of the sports analogies about exam preparation and how it is that we look at it and how it is that we need to prepare for it. Preparing to pass a professional certification exam is a marathon. It's not a sprint. This isn't something where we're going to go all out for a short period of time, but instead, this is something that's going to take months. And this is the case where slow and steady, it's not going to win the race, but it's going to pass your exam for you. And so what we're looking at here is this mindset of it's going to take time. I tell people, when you start studying, don't start studying 8 hours a day. Don't start trying to study 30 hours a week. You can't do it for that long. Now, I understand that the week before your exam, you have the motivation, the adrenaline, the excitement, and you are able to study a little bit more than usual and be able to do that effectively because you have that excitement and that pressure of the exam date coming very soon. But when we're looking at this as a 4-month, 6-month, 8-month process, it's a marathon. We can't speed it up. There aren't any shortcuts. There's no way that we can reduce what it is that we need to study, what it is that we need to learn. And so we need to have in mind as we start this, slow and steady, just continuously committed, dedicated, week after week, month after month, and we'll get where it is that we need to go. And we will pass our exam the first time we take it. So with that kind of approach, that mentality of being in this for the long haul, I want to give an example of what we're going to talk about here with a study schedule and the importance of a study schedule from a financial standpoint. If we were together, we'd spend a little bit of time talking about budgets, not budgets for companies, but budgets for ourselves. We all have a certain amount of income each month, and we have certain things that we need to spend for. We need to pay for our apartment, our house, our car, transportation, clothing, school, whatever it is, all the different expenses that we have. And the nice thing about a budget, and this isn't my thought, but it's one that I've heard and I've appreciated and come to realize is true and accurate. When we have a personal budget, what that does for us is it allows us the freedom, the ability, that freedom to spend the money that we know is not budgeted for something else. Okay, so we have our budget, we have a certain amount of income, we pay for our housing, we pay for our transportation, we pay for our clothing, we pay for our food, we pay for whatever activities we're involved in, our kids are involved in. And at the end of that budget, hopefully there's a little bit left over. Well, because we have that budget for our money, we know that there's a certain amount left over every month. And with that money, we can do whatever we want. We can go on vacation. We can go to the theater. We can go to the movies. We can buy a nice present for a friend, for a spouse, because we know that that money is available for that. And so the budget, that financial budget we have with our income each month, isn't something that restricts us. It isn't something that prevents us from spending money. That budget is what allows us to spend money without worry. Knowing that I have this $200, I can spend on whatever I want. I've saved it, I have it. And because I have a budget, I know that it's not needed for something else. I know that this money is my fun money, whatever it is that I want to do with it each month. And so it's that freedom that comes from the financial budget that leads to what I'm going to talk about why it is that we want to have a study plan, a study schedule, why it is that we want to know our study schedule. So let's start getting to the task at hand here. Let's start by looking at just some basic math. How many hours are there in a week? Okay, how many hours are there in a week? Well, there's 168. 24 hours, 7 days. No matter what time zone you're in, no matter how far north or south, we all have 168 hours in a week. So how many hours should we study? Well, this is a question that's up to you, how quickly you want to take the exam and all of that. But generally, we talk about 10 hours a week as a common goal. Most exams are somewhere between 150 and 200 hours per part to prepare. So 10 hours a week is 20 weeks. 20 weeks is 5 months. And I generally see people preparing 4 to 6 months for an exam. So let's take 10 hours a week as what it is that we want to study. And that's our target. That's our goal, is to study 10 hours a week. So if we just kind of start on Monday and we know we have to study 10 hours a week, what happens is on Monday night, we think, oh, I should study tonight. But then we don't. And we get nervous that we didn't study on Monday, so now I have to study on Tuesday. But before we start worrying about when we're studying, let's talk about what it is we do with our time. Okay, we've got 168 hours a week. Now, we all work, and so let's say that between work time and transportation time and time off for lunch, whatever the case may be, it's 10 hours a day from the time we leave to the time we come home, and we do that 5 days a week. So that's 50 hours. Of our 168 hours, 50 of it is work. Well, sleep, let's say 9 hours a day, and let's say this is our going to bed, our waking up, just kind of all that kind of morning and evening activities. 9 hours a day, we do that every day. So that's 7 days a week, 9 hours, that's 63 hours. Okay, getting our week taken care of. Family time, activities, playing games together, whatever the case may be, let's say that's 2 hours a day. 7 days a week. Now, I understand Saturday and Sunday, weekend days, maybe a little bit more, other days, but anyway, 2 hours a day, 14 hours. Let's say we exercise, some sport activity, whatever hobby that we do, 2 hours a day, 4 days a week. That's 8 hours a week. And let's say we spend an hour doing errands, cleaning, cooking, paying bills, whatever the case may be, taking care of things around the house, whatever that is for you. And let's say that's an hour a day. So that's 7 hours. Now, I understand that these are just kind of approximate hours, and you may work a little bit more, a little bit less, or you may sit there and think 9 hours of sleep, if only I could do that much, spend that much time sleeping. But if we add all of this up, that's 142 hours. That's 142 hours. And I think we can kind of sit here and say, yeah, that seems like good things. That's work, sleep, family time, exercise, just kind of day-to-day things that need to be done. So we've got 142 hours spoken for. So there are 168 hours in the week. We just accounted for 142 hours. No, it's not difficult math. That leaves us with 26 hours a week that we could study. Now, it may not be equal. It may not be that that's 3.5 hours every individual day, because on the days that you exercise, obviously there's less time. And so I'm not saying that this is equal every day, but you're looking at having 26 hours available to study. And remember, we're planning on studying 10 hours a week. So here's the point where I know sometimes, and I've said this in various contexts, when you start studying for your exam, what you need to do is you need to sit down with your spouse and tell them you're studying for the exam, and you'll see them in 6 months and you hope everyone has a good time while you're studying. But realistically, if we look at this, we had 26 hours of the week that were available as kind of just to do something. And we're only trying to study 10 of those 26 hours. So even if we add 10 hours of studying to that schedule that I went through in terms of what we spend our time, we can add 2 hours a day for something else and still find the 10 hours a week to study. Now, if we want to study 20 hours a week, we can, but obviously then there's only 6 hours that's available for something else. But what happens with a schedule is the schedule gives you freedom. Okay? The schedule gives you freedom. So let's talk here for a minute about what is a schedule. Okay, when we're talking about the importance of a study schedule, what do I mean by that? Well, it's answering these questions. What days of the week are you going to study? Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Maybe every day you want to study an hour and a half every day. But a schedule is knowing what days of the week we're going to study. And also, when will we study? On Monday, when are we studying? Are we going to study before work? Are we going to study a little bit at lunchtime? Are we going to study right after we come home? Are we going to study after the kids go to bed, before we go to bed? When in that day are we going to study? And also, when we're setting up a study schedule, we need to be realistic. And so we also want to identify what is our replacement study time during the week, because I said we're going to do this for 6 months. Well, I can understand, or I can see that, if I were to sit down and choose when I would study during the week, well, I know when I have activities, I know when my kids are at various activities, and I need to either drive them there or be there, whatever the case may be. And so I have a standard typical week, and I can sit here and I can say, well, Tuesday from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock is a really good time for me to study. Thursday from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock in the evening is a really good time for me to study. But I know that in 6 months, there's going to be a week where that Tuesday time isn't available. That Thursday time isn't available. There's some special event at school for the children. There's some work event that you need to attend. There's a business trip you need to go on. You get sick. So there's going to be, over the course of those months, a few weeks when you can't study when it is that you were scheduled to study. So identify that next time that's best, so that when you look at your schedule for the week and you say, oh, I'm not going to be able to study on Thursday when I normally study, you can say, well, okay, that means Tuesday morning I'm going to study. That's that next best time for me to do my studying. So have that replacement time already set up, so that you don't have to panic. Oh, I can't study on Thursday. When am I going to study? You know when you're going to study. So if we've set up our study schedule and we know Monday, Wednesday, Friday, whatever days of the week, whatever times of the day it is that we're going to study, it doesn't matter. Once we know when we're going to study, what that means is all of the other time is ours. We can do whatever we want with it. We can watch the soccer game. We can watch the basketball game. We can go to the park. We can go to the theater. We can sleep a little extra. Whatever it is that we want to do, because we know that that time is not studying. And this is where the freedom comes. If you don't have a study schedule, in terms of Monday, Wednesday, whatever times it is, when you wake up on Monday morning, you think, I could study tonight. You come home from work on Monday and you sit down and you think, oh gosh, maybe I should study tonight. I should probably study tonight. I should study tonight. It'd be a good thing to study tonight. And then you don't. So you go to bed Monday disappointed in yourself. Oh, I didn't study today. I should have studied today. Why didn't I study today? Now I have to study tomorrow. So Tuesday morning, you wake up and I need to study today. Tuesday night, it's always there. If you don't have a schedule of when you're going to study, what that means is you could always be studying. It's just hanging over your head all the time. But if you know that your schedule is Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., okay, that's when you're going to study. When you wake up on Monday morning, you say, hey, today's a study day. 6 o'clock, I'm going to start studying. Morning, don't need to worry about it. Lunchtime, don't need to worry about it. But 6 to 8, I'm going to study. And so then after my study session Monday night at 8 o'clock, I'm done. Hey, I'm done. I studied. I can do what I want now. And Tuesday morning when I wake up, don't have to think about it. Today's not a study day. I don't have to. Maybe I'll study. Maybe. Today's not a study day. So that schedule gives you the freedom to enjoy all of the time that you're not studying. But without a schedule, every morning you could study. Every lunchtime you could study. Every evening you could study. And that becomes stressful. That's just always on your mind. Always, oh, I should study, I should study, I should study. But you don't need to. With the schedule, you know when your study time is, and the rest of the time is in study time. You don't need to worry about it. But then we have the issue of ultimately we need to stick to our schedule as much as we can. But we know from reality, we're not going to be able to follow it every week. Okay. I understand that if we had a 3-week study plan or the 3 weeks before our exam, we might be able to do that. But when we're talking about months and months of studying, something's going to come up. We're not going to be able to follow it every week. So we can plan ahead, reschedule a specific week. Say this week, I can't study on Friday. I'm going to study Monday and Wednesday, but I'm not going to study Friday. Just I'm not going to do it. That's fine. We've got months to work with. It's going to happen. We can reschedule when necessary. We're going to get sick. Our kids are going to get sick. Something's going to happen. We're going to go on a business trip that we didn't expect we're going to go on. We're going to be out of town for a few days. So we want to get back onto our schedule as soon as possible. We don't want one day to become 1 month of, well, today didn't work out. But to me, the biggest advantage of having a study schedule is the other 16 hours a week. We've got 26 hours that aren't sleeping, working, taking care of our family. We've got 26 hours. 10 of those are studying. When we have a study schedule, those other 16 hours are ours, stress-free to do whatever it is that we want to do. Now, in addition to having a study schedule, which is our what day of the week are we going to study, we also need to have a study plan. And the distinction I make between a study plan and a study schedule is that the study plan is for each individual study session that we have. Every time we sit down to study, we want that time to be as effective, as efficient as possible, which means we need to have a plan for what we're going to accomplish each time we sit down. And so what that plan does is it keeps that study session on target, and it prevents it from just kind of drifting from one thing to another. Okay. So when we talk about a plan, what are we talking about? You need to have a starting time and an ending time, but then also what it is you're going to do during that time. Am I going to read the textbook? Am I going to watch videos? Am I going to do MCQs? Am I going to do a mock exam? Am I going to be reviewing stuff that I studied previously? Okay. What is it that I need to be doing during this study time? If you don't have a plan of what you want to accomplish, you end up not necessarily moving forward, because you sit down and you read a little bit in the textbook, and then you say, oh, let me do a question about that. And then you do a question, and that makes you think of another topic. And so you just kind of bounce around without having a plan or a target for what it is that you're going to do going forward. And so you need to make certain that I'm going to read these 15 pages in the textbook. I'm going to do these 20 MCQs, and be realistic. If you're studying for an hour, you're not going to do 60 MCQs. So be realistic. Yeah, I know in our pass map system, the hours that we calculate are not random numbers. We look at how many pages are in the textbook. We look at how many MCQs there are. We look at how many minutes of videos there are. And that determines how much time approximately you should be spending on a study unit. So be realistic with what it is you're trying to accomplish. And then within a study session, you may also want to have how long you're going to spend doing something. This 30 minutes doing this, an hour doing this, 30 minutes doing that, that's my 2 hours. Okay, that structure gives you freedom because you know that you're moving forward, you know that you're doing what it is that you need to do. And so all of this to say that the study time you do when you're studying, you need that study time to be value added. And the topic in exams, value added, where the time you're spending is getting you closer to the goal of passing your exam. So here's the thing to keep in mind. Simply studying more hours doesn't mean you're better prepared. And similarly, simply doing more MCQs doesn't mean you are better prepared. If I know how to calculate depreciation, I don't need to do 15 additional questions to prove that I know how to calculate depreciation. That's not a value add. If I already know the topic fairly well, and there's one little detail that I didn't understand, I don't need to spend 3 hours going through Google reading articles and research about this topic. I know on one hand, we'd like to think, well, I was studying, but are you closer to passing the exam than when you started? That's studying, that hours of research, those additional questions you found somewhere about a topic you already know. So if we have a plan for each time we sit down and we think a few sessions ahead, okay, we know how long it's going to take to study everything. This is what our study system helps you do. This is how long it's going to take you to study this study unit. This is how long you need to plan for this study unit. So if you sit down and you see that your next study unit is 4 hours of time and you study 1 hour a day, well, you need to sit down and say, okay, my next 4 study sessions are this one study unit. So the first one, I'm going to read the textbook. The next one, I'm going to watch the video, and I'm going to do just a few questions to start. And then the last 2 sessions are going to be doing the MCQs to practice that topic, whatever the case may be. But the goal is passing your exam. We need to keep that in mind. That's what it is you're trying to do, is pass your exam. So we need to create the study schedule. We need to have the study plan, all with the focus of passing your exam the first time you take it. And study schedules, study plans is how you study to pass, how you pass your exam, and also how you enjoy those other hours of the week. And go back, we're 168 hours in the week. We determined there were 26 available, 10 of those, 12 of those, whatever number of those we want to study. By having the study schedule, we can enjoy those other 10, 15 hours a week because we know when we're supposed to study. And perhaps just as importantly, we know when we're not supposed to study. And that allows us to enjoy that time because we aren't supposed to be studying. We don't have to be studying. We are simply able to enjoy that time because we know when we're studying. And as I said, we know when it is that we are not studying as well. So that is the last part of what I wanted to talk about in terms of the importance of study schedules, the importance of study plans. And so I know that I probably didn't answer every question that you have. And so if you have questions, you can type them in the chat. I'll open the chat window here and you can type them in the chat. You can unmute yourself. It's not a big group. So if you have any questions about study schedules, study plans, I'll be happy to answer them, to share my thoughts on how it is that we can use these simple tools. It's not difficult. Use these simple tools of just identifying when during the week we're going to study, what we're going to study each time that we study, and how we can use those tools to move forward and make certain that the study time that we have is value added and helping us be ready to pass our exam. So what questions are there out there?
Hi, sir. I have one question, but
Yes.
it's not regarding, I mean, it's also kind of a study as because it's most debated topic. Should we need to try studying? Because, for example, I have some free time right now. I am concentrating mostly on my group one. Do you advise or how do you suggest me if I have extra free time? For example, I'm not working. Do you suggest us to take and understand group one and group two, or you ask me to concentrate on only one thing first?
Well, if you're not working, which I know happens for short periods of time, your time available for studying increases dramatically because obviously that work time is one of the biggest things that we're doing. And so you can spend more time studying. And I think I didn't hear everything clearly, but was part of the question in terms of when should you study difficult topics?
Yeah, for example, I mean, I need a lot of time for the process costing, for example, or should I mean, now I have if I'm not working now, do you advise to study both the groups, part one and part two?
You can do that. Studying part one and part two together, you don't really need to do that because they don't build on each other. So I would generally still advise you to study part one just in a shorter period of time and then study part two. But what you can do, and this is something that is a good tool at times, I'll just, whatever topic is most difficult for you. Everybody has a topic that's more difficult for them than others. When you have a difficult topic, sometimes the best thing to be able to do is to take a break from it. And so what you might do is you might say, okay, this is my difficult topic, section B, I don't know, whatever, however it's set up. Section B is my difficult topic. I don't like it, or it's not as easy for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to study, one study session will be about section B, and the next one I'll continue with section C. Then I'll go back to section B, then I'll go back to section C. And so within the same exam, you can kind of study two topics at the same time. Because otherwise what happens is if there's a big section that you just don't like, I mean, I know we all have it. Spending a lot of time within that difficult section becomes mentally exhausting. And so take a break. I'm going to study this a little bit, but then I'm going to go study something that I feel a little more comfortable. I feel I'm making progress. I feel a little more positive about. And so you can split between section B and section C. Kind of go back and forth between those two to help with that. There's a question, how many times should you watch a video or read the book to understand? It depends. Sometimes once is enough, and sometimes it needs to be 3 times. And I know that's not an answer, be saying it depends, but it really does, because take an example that there's a topic on the exam that you actually do at work. It's what you do. Well, you don't really need to spend a lot of time studying it. You need to spend some time making certain you understand how it's tested on the exam. So if it's a topic you're familiar with, if it's a topic you recently studied at university or in some other training program, you may not need to spend very much time getting to understanding it. But if it's a topic you're not familiar with, it may take more time. And this is something that we get people sometimes will write us and they'll ask us, we need to study. And I say, no, I can't, because you know better. You yourself know the best how well you understand a topic. You yourself know when you're doing those MCQs, were you guessing or not? Did you really understand it? You yourself know that, yes, I got that question incorrect, but it was a stupid mistake. I know that. If I just look at your statistics, I don't have that understanding that you have. So you're the one who's in the best position to know what you understand and what you don't understand and what it is that you need to study. We have a question about the webinars that have happened. All these webinars that we're having and the short courses that we're having are available after the event for 3 days. So after, if you were signed up after the event, a little after the event, you get an email with a link to the video, and it's available for 3 days to watch that. And the same as this one. If you want to go back and watch this one, it'll be available for a few days. Any other questions about study plans, study schedules, how it is to do value-added studying?
So, one thing I was wondering, like, again, in the sequence, it says you read the text, video, and then do those questions after practice questions. So when we actually are on a particular topic, we know that the question relates to that topic and it's kind of easy to maybe answer. But then when I look at some, other questions and random MCQs, then sometimes it's difficult to figure out which topic does it relate to. And, I started with part 1 and then I decided to do part 2 first. So sometimes I'm also confused between whether this question relates to part 1 or part 2, and then from which topic.
What specific topic it relates to really isn't important. And I think part of the issue that you're having is, and I agree with you absolutely, when you read the textbook about a topic, you watch the video about a topic, and you do the MCQs about the topic, clearly you know what to expect with the MCQs, and you've had to remember the formula for 2 hours. Okay, I understand that it's easier. One of the things that we recommend that you do is that when you get to the end of section A, you do some questions from section A, all of it. When you get to the end of section B, you do some questions from section A also. And so what you're trying to do is you go through from section A to B to C to D and so on, is refresh your memory about what you've already studied. And I think this is in a book I was reading was talking about this, and I think we tend to focus a lot on what we don't know, and we need to, because we need to try to learn that. But I think sometimes we focus so much on what we don't know that we begin to kind of lose thought of or track of how much we actually have studied and learned. And so by getting to the end of section C and then doing some questions from sections A and B, it not only helps us remember it, but it helps us think, oh yeah, I do remember that. You may not remember all of it, but it's there. It's in your mind. You studied it. You have it there. And so when you come back to the final review, the last few weeks before the exam, when you start studying 17 hours a day, in those last few weeks, you will go back to those topics that you don't remember in section A, but the foundation is still there. You may not actively remember it all, but if you read the book and you watched the videos and you did the MCQs, that foundation is there. And so you'll come back the last few weeks before the exam and kind of refresh that foundation and build the rest of your knowledge for the exam. Okay. And this comes back actually to the concept of it's a marathon. If we could study section A and take the exam for section A, and then study section B and take the exam for section B, pass rates would be much higher. But we have to remember section A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever, however many sections in whatever exam you're taking. We have to remember that the whole time from when we started our first day of studying to when it is that we take the exam. Any other questions? We have a few minutes before our time that we're supposed to be over is here.
Yes, sir. One question,
Yes.
please.
Yes.
sir, as your advice that to be time or depend on time, not quantity of on study sessions. But especially on study MCQs, sometimes it's very difficult to determine how long it will take from me to finalize this topic on study MCQs. Some topics feel very hard to understand, need time. That's why I see that time oriented is very difficult.
Well, it may be difficult to know if I pull up 15 MCQs. We all know that some MCQs are much easier and shorter than other MCQs. And so this again comes back to you have a plan, you have a schedule, but you know it's not going to be perfect. And so if you sit down and say, I've got an hour and I'm going to do 30 MCQs, maybe you can't. Maybe you get through 25 of them. Maybe you get through 20 of them because some of them were difficult. That's fine. Not a problem. You end your session, you did your 20 MCQs, and the next time you study, you know that you'll pick up and finish those MCQs that you started, but you weren't able to finish. And so, but I think that what having the study schedule and the study plan does is it gives you that flexibility within the structure. Okay, you know that this is what your plan is. And if you have a plan and you didn't finish it, you know that that's what you need to start with next time. But if you sit down and you just say, I'm going to do MCQs, you may end up doing 5, 10, 20, but at the end, you don't know whether or not that was a reasonable accomplishment or not, or whether or not you went forward as much as you really needed to. We're never going to know how long to read a textbook. Again, if it's a topic you're familiar with, you read it once and you know it all. If it's a topic you're not familiar with, you're going to have to spend some more time. And that just becomes sitting down, this is what I plan to do, and making adjustments as you go through, from study session to study session. Sometimes you accomplish more than you wanted to. You sat down and you wanted to do 20 questions and you got done early, and you can say, hey, I'm going to do 5 more questions, or I'm going to go review from a previous topic. I've got a little extra time here I didn't think I was going to have, so I'm going to go do some questions from the topics that I finished 2 months ago. But again, to me, it's having that kind of the structure, the skeleton of how it is that we're going to study. Then we're just kind of building the details of that as we go through and making adjustments as we need to as we go through. But you're right, you never know.
Thank you, sir.
You never know exactly how long it's going to take you. I think we have time for one more
also
question.
One of the things.
Yes.
Yeah, so you mentioned like probably we should actually go back and then do questions of section A, and then when we are on C, then we do A and B. Now, these questions, once I've answered 100% correct, do they actually change, or are they the same? Because what could happen is I could just memorize those questions, and then that's why they may become easy every time I do.
Well, a couple of comments about that. One, the way our system works, and hopefully any system does, is when you choose a certain number of MCQs, our system, from the topics you select, our system will first give you the questions you have not seen before. Then it will give you the questions, once you've seen them all, it will give you the questions you have not gotten correct yet. Then it will give you once you've gotten them all correct, it gives you the question that you got correct the longest time ago. So the question you haven't seen in the longest period of time. So I know that when you're studying when going through section A and you're studying section A, you may start to memorize some of them. But when you're studying section E and you come back to section A, you're not going to remember them. Okay, you're not going to remember exactly how they all work. But also, one of the ways you can use an MCQ to really understand, you can look at why the incorrect answers are incorrect. And not every question does this, but some of the theory questions where there's not a calculation, most of the incorrect answer choices are a reasonable choice that would be correct for a different question. So if you can go through and say, okay, this question it's not the right answer, but how could we change the question so that this choice would become the correct answer? And when you start being able to look at how and why an incorrect choice is incorrect and how the question would need to be changed in order for that answer to be correct, you've just prepared for another MCQ, because they could have asked that MCQ instead of the one that the past exam question actually is. So understanding the incorrect answers is a good tool as well once you really feel good with the topic. Well, I think we're about the time that we said we would be done, I think. So I will thank you for coming. I hope this was helpful to you. I hope you understand the importance of having that schedule during the week of when it is you're going to study, having a plan for each of the individual study sessions that you have. As I said at the beginning, passing any professional exam is a marathon. We're talking about months of preparation. And so you need to have that plan, that structure, that system in place to help you go week by week by week by week, and having that study schedule, having those individual study plans for each session is going to make your study time much more enjoyable, because it's going to give you those other hours of the week. You know you're studying Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and you know that the other days of the week you don't need to study. It gives you that, the structure gives you the freedom to enjoy the time during the week that you're not studying. And that's important. It gives us all that whole work-life balance, and it makes the study process much, much more enjoyable for you, your family, your friends, because that study schedule gives you the freedom to enjoy what I call those other hours during the week. So thank you for coming. I wish you great success on whatever exam it is that you're taking. I hope that from here going forward, maybe your study sessions are a little bit better, your study time's a little bit more organized, a little more structured, and you enjoy those other hours of your week, because once you know when you're supposed to be studying, you have the freedom to enjoy those hours when you're not supposed to be studying. So thank you very much for coming. And if you have any questions, absolutely reach out to us by email. Also, I guess I should mention, we have a number of, for those of you that are studying CMA, we have a number of short courses where we're looking at individual topics of the exam, helping you study those. I know we've had a lot of people attending those. If you have our CMA complete materials, those courses are free for you. Okay, it's just one of the benefits of having the complete materials. Those courses are free. If you don't have those, we have discounts available. They're not that expensive, but they can help you get through those topics that are a little bit harder, a little bit more challenging. And so you go to the events page on our website. We have all of those. You can sign up for those. But have great success with your studying, great success on your exam, and I wish you all great success in your career. And I look forward to seeing one of our webinars in the future. Goodbye.